Well, good morning and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Aiken. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio this morning, as we are always broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. We have a lot to cover, a lot of updates, just a lot of news stories in general. There's not going to be a lot of segueing because there is so much to cover. First, we're going to kick off the program with viewer comments. The viewer comment section of Frankly Speaking, brought to you by Steuben County Senior Services, Steuben Senior Services Fund, empowering seniors to age at home. First of all, this isn't an email, and I neglected to bring that up on yesterday's program, but we received a great gift from a viewer. Brian Severson was nice enough to send us a map. Why? Because we've been getting so many great waves and comments from the continental United States, foreign lands. We received a wave Friday from Egypt, and we received a wave from the Philippines a couple months ago maybe now, and we've had waves from Alaska, from Wyoming. So we're going to have a map here soon. I've got to figure out a way to display it. It's quite a large map, but we want to thank Brian so much for sending us that map. And soon when you're on vacation, you'll have to remember to send a wave. I'm sorry to ask you to do that, but when you travel, and tell us where you're at, and we'll keep putting pins in the map just for a new addition to Frankly Speaking. Okay, some comments. Watch Representative Castor, or should I say Castro of Florida, pushing for solar power while taking a lot of time to criticize President Trump and the big, beautiful bill. However, in typical Democrat fashion, she is pushing to ram solar power down the throats of anyone who is taking the time to listen to her rhetoric, but with no forethought as to what would be done with all the spent batteries. And you've got to add in the solar power, the implication that recently it looks as if China has added to some solar panels a different set of wiring that was not originally in the blueprint when people purchase them, in a way that many people think that they can hack in and shut down the grid if need be. So you've got to think of the security implications as well. But thank you for that. Talk about a potential environmental catastrophe. What is wrong with these short-circuited idiots? Thank you very much. Comment from a different viewer. Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning, Mark. So I was wondering what Hochul thinks about everything electric, as the subway cars can't run in New York City as the heat is so extreme and the grid can't handle it. That is going to continue to be a major issue. The grid is not ready for what we have now when we have heat like this, let alone if with the mandate that we've been talking about on the program the last few days for new building, new construction, by next year required to go all electric. You've got electric vehicles. Yes, it's going to be an on-running topic because we're not there. The grid's just, it's not there. And so I don't think her opinion's changed. I do think because of some of these deadlines coming a little too soon, they are pushing them back, but not completely erasing them either. So we're going to talk about Hochul a little bit later on as well with her reaction to the shooting in New York City. We've got some updates on that. And speaking of which, and then Carol, I apologize. Carol from Horseheads wrote in and sent into the email, which is fine. I just don't always check the email because it doesn't update as quickly as the texts do. So I apologize that I missed this yesterday, Carol. But Carol wrote in, can you imagine, take the scenario in Manhattan. Can you imagine an army of social workers doing what the NYPD did to enter an unsafe building, clear it floor by floor, and almost immediately contact the social workers in Las Vegas for information? No, I can't either. What are those boneheads thinking in these liberal cities? Thank you, Carol. That's in reference to, and Mamadani's in a lot of hot water over this, because that special forces that you were talking about, he wants to eliminate those. That was one of his pieces of his platform. We're going to talk about that a little bit later on, because this is not the crisis Mamadani was prepared for. We'll put it that way. And even far left New York Times was reporting that he is perhaps not up to this challenge. But This is also in reference to the social workers, where people that wanted to defund the police wanted the police to be replaced with social workers. Now imagine, to Carol's fantastic point, that tragedy, that senseless act of violence, imagine if that had to be quashed by social workers, I guess knocking on the door as that man was shooting indiscriminately. So you're exactly right, and that's why I feel bad I missed it yesterday, Carol, but I think it's just as relevant this morning. Oh, hey, by the way, yep, that's the first ones. Now we hear from Carol. Yes, Carol. Did I say Carol? We just talked about Carol. Come on, we got to get back on track here, Frank. It's Karen's quote of the week. If you're new or maybe you missed a couple shows, Karen has been kind enough to send in a quote each week. And her original intention is to make the name Karen great again, which is very clever. She said, "Hello, Frank. For this week's Karen's quote, I'd like to play a little game. Who said the following? Quote, we simply cannot allow people to pour into the U.S. undetected, undocumented, unchecked, and circumventing the line of people waiting patiently, diligently, and lawfully become immigrants in this country." The quote is from 2006. Would you think it was Florida State Representative Marco Rubio or Illinois Senator Barack Obama? I bring this quote up not because I don't think politicians can change their position, but to demonstrate just how far the Democratic Party has changed in their fundamental policies, because yes, you guessed it, it was, of course, Barack Obama. Thank you for that great quote. Because it does show, listen, politicians can change, but when you talk about someone like Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton, fundamentally changed on so many core issues because it depended on where they were running. I mean, this is, if you look at something as simple as gay marriage, where Barack Obama stood when he was running in his district for in the state for Senate, where he knew he had to be one position, which was opposed to gay marriage. And then when it became time to be president, when he became president, wording things strangely this morning, he completely switched that position. So yes, this is not the first time, but again, just to read Karen's quote, this was then Illinois Senator Barack Obama, future president. We simply cannot allow people to pour into the U.S. undetected, undocumented, unchecked, and circumventing the line of people waiting patiently, diligently, and lawfully to becoming immigrants in this country. So, and Karen was nice enough to send in waves. All right, thank you. So that's kicking off the program. I love it. Now, the breaking story from overnight is the tsunami. The president, and this is, talk about a breaking story. There's a lot of moving pieces here. We'll try to keep you updated as things unfold. We don't have a lot of information at this time. The president tweeting out last night, due to a massive earthquake that occurred in the Pacific Ocean, a tsunami warning is in effect for those living in Hawaii. A tsunami watch is in effect for Alaska and the Pacific coast of the United States. Japan is also in the way. Stay strong and stay safe. Now, we learned late last night, perhaps early this morning, based on all available data, a major tsunami is not expected to strike the state of Hawaii. However, sea levels change and strong currents may occur along all coasts. That could be a hazard to swimmers and boaters as well as to persons near the shore at beaches and in harbors and marinas. The threat may continue for several hours after the initial wave arrives. So that's your update on that. We don't have a lot of news on that because it is unfolding, but we'll try to do our best to keep you up to date on that this morning. All right, some breaking stories last night. The Senate did confirm Trump lawyer Emil Bove for a federal appeals court judge. Justice Department official Emil Bove was narrowly confirmed to a lifetime seat on the federal appeals court after the GOP-led Senate dismissed whistleblower claims. He urged the Trump administration to defy court orders. That is, the media tried to push that for a while. They'll continue. But this idea, there's this whistleblower. See, there's a lot of people. This is one of the problems when you do something like DOGE or you try to cut the bureaucracy. Whistleblowers are going to be coming out of the woodwork. Why? Because they're disgruntled employees. If you've ever been fired from a job, laid off from a job, you normally don't have the best things to say about, or even if you quit a job, you don't normally have the best things to say about your former employer. So the idea is if you're going to find a whistleblower, that's the group to find it in. So when I talk in the past about anonymous sources, and they'll say someone within the Justice Department, for instance. Well, that could be the janitor, because technically they are inside the Justice Department. Same thing goes here. If you're going to interview, you're going to get the message you want. When I say you, the mainstream media wants, because they want to paint Trump as chaos, et cetera, et cetera. They're going to be able to find a disgruntled employee that was laid off by Doge or laid off by some of this bureaucratic cutting, if you will. Okay. So I'll continue. The Senate voted 50-49 to approve President Trump's former defense attorney to the Third U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals, with Senators Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski breaking rank. Those names are the common two to break rank. Tennessee Republican Bill Hagerty was absent for the vote. The 44-year-old attorney, who served as Trump's personal lawyer during his criminal cases last year, will now sit in the judicial post that oversees federal courts in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Delaware. During the contentious confirmation hearing, Bove faced sharp criticism from Democrats over his role in the dismissal of federal prosecutors handling the January 6, 2021 Capitol riot cases and his involvement in a request to drop corruption charges against Mayor Adams. He was also accused by fired DOJ official Erez Ravina of telling federal prosecutors that White House officials might not comply with court orders that could interfere with the administration's mass deportation plans, a claim Bove told lawmakers he had no recollection of saying. So that happened last night. We don't need to go through all of his hearing and what he had to say. Democrats stormed out of the Senate Judiciary Committee earlier this month after Republicans voted to advance Bove's nomination. You may recall him from that scenario, ignoring their calls to further investigate the whistleblower complaint. Also last night, the Senate confirmed another of Donald Trump's nominees, this time for a position that maintains veterans' cemeteries and oversees burials. Why would this have taken so long, you may ask? Well, Sam Brown, an Army veteran and former Nevada GOP Senate candidate, was confirmed by the Senate to be Trump's Veterans Affairs Undersecretary for Memorial Affairs. The 54-44 vote was largely a partisan affair, except for Nevada's Democrat Senator Catherine Cortez Masto and Jackie Rosen, who both crossed the aisle to vote for Brown's confirmation. So you've got some political implications there of why they did that. So that's why that number looks a little bit larger than most, 54-44. The Undersecretary for Memorial Affairs oversees the National Cemetery Administration, which operates and maintains over 150 national cemeteries. Trump nominated Brown, who served in the Army for 5 years before medically retiring after a roadside improvised explosive device detonated and burned 1/3 of his body, and lauded him as an American hero. Quote, he fearlessly proved his love for our country in the Army while leading troops in battle in Afghanistan and, after being honorably retired as a captain, helping our veterans get access to emergency medication. Brown's confirmation marked the third of the day in the Senate, where a growing list of Trump's nominees to a variety of agencies, judgeships, and ambassadorships have been slowed down by Senate Democrats. Senate Republican leadership are trudging through the Democrats' blockade and working to hammer out a deal to get more nominees moved through quicker. Senate Republicans argue that Brown's position in particular shouldn't be subject to the partisanship on display in Democrats' attempts to slow walk others. Senator Jerry Moran, chair of the Senate Veterans Affairs Committee, had his request earlier this year to confirm Brown through a much faster process known as unanimous consent objected to by Senate Democrats. Quote, Moran said, laying our veterans to rest with honor, serving their families with dignity is not a Republican or Democrat issue. I'm discouraged that we cannot work in a bipartisan manner to confirm this qualified and capable leader for the National Cemetery Administration. That position is responsible for carrying out our nation's most solemn responsibilities, burying our veterans. So after slow walking it, Mr. Brown, Sam Brown, finally getting the confirmation to the Veterans Affair role. Okay, also one other thing I want to get your opinion on, and then we've got a lot of updates from yesterday's program. Representative Bob Onder has introduced the Make Entertainment Great Again Act That is to rename the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts the Donald J. Trump Center for Performing Arts, honoring President Trump when described as the most significant cultural icon in the past 40 years. Now, this is interesting because we know a few weeks ago, the idea was floated around to name the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts after Melania Trump. But the press release said, for more than 40 years, President Trump has been a patron of the arts and staple of the pop culture landscape. From books and television shows to board games, movies, and more. When it comes to the arts, President Trump's golden touch has captivated and entertained audiences for decades. So your thoughts on that? Again, make entertainment great again. Bill by Representative Bob Onder will rename the Kennedy Center to the President Donald J. Trump Center for the Arts. All right. Talk about covering a lot. Yes, we're running late. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Attention, Elmeron may lead to vision loss.
If you have suffered vision problems after taking Elmeron to treat bladder pain, call the Hearn Law Firm. Elmeron may be responsible for your vision problems, and you may deserve compensation for your injuries.
If you took Elmeron and now have vision problems, call the Hearn Law Firm at 888-308-3866 right now. You could find out if you qualify in less than 2 minutes. Call 888-308-3866 for your free case review.
Your water is delicious.
I know, right? It's this Culligan Smart drinking water system.
What do you think is going on in there?
I'm smelling a touch of chlorine.
Yeah, I'm detecting some PFAS.
I'm also getting notes of lead.
Perfection.
Sending it up.
Here we go.
Certified to reduce more than 70 contaminants, it's like having your own team of water experts. See the smart difference at Culligan.com.
Don't have to go to the gym? The health club is not an option? Come to Hesselson today and see why swim spas and fitness systems can fit into anyone's yard and budget. 12-foot, 14-foot, 15-foot, 18-foot dual temperature hot tub and swim spas are all on display in Hesselson's indoor and outdoor showroom. Try before you buy. 0% interest-free financing options are available on every Hesselson swim spa. Swim and exercise year-round and start making every day better. After 70 years, it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
Steuben County Office for the Aging will be hosting a public hearing on Thursday, September 18th at First Presbyterian Church in Bath. This hearing is to review the 2026 Annual Implementation Plan for the Older Americans Act and the Steuben County Office for the Aging. This public hearing will take place at 9 a.m. on Thursday, September 18th in the Fellowship Hall of the First Presbyterian Church in Bath. Copies of the plan will be available at the Office for the Aging.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. A comment from a viewer during the Steuben Senior Services Fund section of our program. Correct me if I'm wrong, but along the lines of changing positions, when Hillary Clinton ran for and was subsequently nominated for the Senate here in New York State, she stated that she would fulfill the position for the full term, but before the end of the term, she quit to take a position at the federal level. That may have been the second term. So she had a full term, and then there was a second term where during that she ran for president, subsequently lost to Barack Obama, and then Barack Obama put her in eventually as Secretary of State. So I don't remember the exact time frame, but I know that there was questions at the time, well, if you run for Senate for a second term, are you going to run for president? So that may be more in line with your point of view or your thinking. Okay, yesterday we talked about Tish James, again using lawfare in the situation with SNAP. See, what the Trump administration wants is to get the records on SNAP, which is essentially food stamps, just with a different name. So they wanted that information so they could weed out and find the information on illegal immigrants in the state of New York. So she sued. Moving to protect lawbreakers, not taxpayers, State Attorney General Tish James is again suing the Trump administration, this time to block it from getting the names of illegal aliens getting SNAP benefits, aka food stamps. States administer the program, signing up SNAP beneficiaries, sending out the EBT cards loaded with federal taxpayer cash, and supposedly policing eligibility, except many don't bother. So SNAP fraud is over $10 billion a year and rising, and Team Trump wants to crack down, particularly on border jumpers who are limited to, at most, 1 year of benefits if the Biden crew granted a temporary okay to enter the interior. This coming from the New York Post editorial board. Anyone illegally collecting SNAP is stealing. States should be lining up to help the feds find and, where appropriate, deport these crooks. But James, eager to counter everything Trump does, insists the feds' request for SNAP data is simply more of the president's, quote, cruel and chaotic immigration agenda and is unacceptable. She uses that a lot. If you follow Letitia James, she says the term unacceptable a lot. Surely the truly chaotic policy was waving in millions of unvetted migrants while springing violent criminal asylum seekers from jail to let them kill Americans. That is the real cruelty. And handing out anti-poverty cash to people who don't qualify for it should be grossly unacceptable, to use her term. This suit is just the latest in James' long history of performative litigation, almost always losing, by the way. In half a year, get this is why I bring it up. Because yesterday somebody had asked, what about this lawsuit? What about that? And we said, man, I wonder how many lawsuits Letitia James has directed at Donald Trump. Right now, just currently ongoing. Listen to this. In half a year, because Trump's only been in office a little over half a year, a few days over half a year. In half a year, she's entangled New Yorkers in 30 politicized lawsuits against the Trump team. 30 lawsuits in 6 months, folks. She sued to stop the president from dismantling the Department of Education and lost. She sued to prevent him from firing federal workers and lost. She sued to keep Doge from accessing Social Security data, and she is currently losing. New York is among the worst states in administering SNAP. James could go after the tens of millions of dollars in organized food stamp fraud, but that wouldn't win her the liberal media spotlight. So state taxpayers get to underwrite yet another losing lawsuit. New York sure could use an AG who doesn't just showboat for the national stage. How about working for the people for once? General James, yes, this is a waste of our money, a waste of taxpayers' money. 30 lawsuits in 6 months. Doesn't that blow your mind? But she thinks, and now again, you've heard me say my thoughts on this. If I were a Democrat, I would be outraged with Letitia James and with Alvin Bragg, because I think they caused a lot of people to say, I wasn't going to vote, and maybe I don't even like Trump that much. But you know what? I'm not going to have these basically politicians keep him from running, using lawfare to keep him off the ballot, or they think affect the vote. And so I think they thought it would affect the vote pro-Kamala or Biden at the time, but instead it went pro-Trump. Because people don't like to be, Americans don't like to be told who they can and cannot vote for by some lawyer that is essentially weaponizing the justice system to go after someone they disagree with politically. Simple as that. So I believe Democrats should be outraged at her, but she sees these as opportunities to show, again, because what's it all about? She's one of the faces of the resistance. And we actually have some infighting with the Democrat Party we're going to get to a little bit later on in the program with who's trying to outshine each other, if you will, as the leader of the resistance. We're going to talk about that in a moment. But Letitia James is entangled in 30 lawsuits versus Trump. You could say the biggest ones right now: birthright citizenship, transportation funding, mass firings, as we mentioned, tariffs, 30 lawsuits. Wow, in 6 months. Okay, when we come back, a quick update on, because we've had this conversation quite a bit lately, and it's about Gaza. There's a few things here that I think are interesting that need to be mentioned, because I've talked about the media's bias in this, and we've seen people, I believe, duped by reports that they've read, and those reports using numbers from Hamas's propaganda wing, and the New York Times pushing that propaganda, which we brought to you yesterday. We're going to give you an update on that. Also then, we're going to talk about the Manhattan shooting I have a couple of pieces on how that is affecting the mayoral race in New York City that I think you'll find interesting as well. Keep those comments, keep those waves coming in. We'll keep reading them, and we'll keep counting the waves. So stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
I'm Marianne Crawford. I've lived here for 70 years, but I do fine right here in my house, and I want to be here as long as I can be. And I feel comfortable knowing that if something happened to me, someone would know because of the cameras that are installed in various spots in my home. That has been a wonderful gift to me to be able to have that security and that support from Full Circle America, and that's what it's all about.
I have type 2 diabetes, but I manage it well. It's a little pill with a big story to tell. I take once daily Jardiance at each day start. As time went on, it was easy to see I'm lowering my A1C.
And for adults with type 2 diabetes and known heart disease, Jardiance can lower the risk of cardiovascular death too.
Serious side effects include increased ketones in blood or urine, which can be fatal. Stop Jardiance and call your doctor right away if you have nausea, vomiting, stomach pain, tiredness, trouble breathing, or increased ketones. Jardiance may cause dehydration that can suddenly worsen kidney function and make you feel dizzy, lightheaded, or weak upon standing. Genital yeast infections in men and women, urinary tract infections, low blood sugar, or a rare life-threatening bacterial infection between and around the anus and genitals can occur. Call your doctor right away if you have fever or feel weak or tired and pain, tenderness, swelling, or redness in the genital area. Don't use if allergic to Jardiance. Stop use if you have a serious allergic reaction. Call your doctor if you have rash, swelling, difficulty breathing, or swallowing. You may have increased risk for lower limb loss. Call your doctor right away if you have new pain or tenderness, sores, ulcers, or infection in your legs or feet.
Jardiance is really swell, the little pill with a big story to tell.
Nearly 5 kilos of cocaine has been seized in a bust.
Thousands lined the pier at Seneca Harbor. Race weekend brought thousands to Watkins Glen International.
Hundreds and horseheads joined other cities around the country on Saturday for the No Kings protest.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. Comment from a viewer: why is the liar Letitia James still an attorney, Attorney General, given that she lied to purchase her house? Great question. I know some things work a little bit slower than we'd like them to, but as far as I'm aware, that investigation is still ongoing, and we hope to have information for you on that as soon as possible. I'd love to be able to break the story, because if she's going to use lawfare against Trump, Trump says, well, let's look into what you've done. And she clearly had some very questionable things when it came to her mortgage, but we'll wait and see what they discover. I also wanted to mention, and this is completely off topic from what we've been talking about, but I wanted to hear your thoughts, and I know it's a kind of a major story, that the Union Pacific and Norfolk Southern officially struck a merger deal to create the country's first coast-to-coast railroad. This was announced yesterday, less than a week after they were reportedly in talks about it. If approved, the merger would mark the first time in U.S. history that a single company controlled rail shipments across the United States. 3 private companies built the first transcontinental railroad in the 1860s, but that only stretched from Iowa to California. The Wall Street Journal reports that regulators have been suspicious of rail mergers in the past due to worries that they will hike prices and lower safety standards. So just kind of a different, one of those stories that can get lost in the shuffle, right? Okay, I wanted to mention this yesterday. I did mention this yesterday, but I wanted to update you on it. The New York Times has appended a story it published last week containing a shocking image of a child purportedly suffering from starvation in Gaza. And we mentioned it yesterday that there was more to that photo than met the eye, but they had a narrative to push, and the narrative was that Israel was starving people in Gaza. The No informs readers that the boy whose name, I'm going to try here, is Mohammed Zakaria El Mutwak, had been, quote, diagnosed with severe malnutrition and pictured in the article also suffers from pre-existing health problems. This is what the Times reported. We recently ran a story about Gaza's most vulnerable civilians, including Mohammed, who is about 18 months old and suffers from severe malnutrition. We have since learned new information, including from the hospital that treated him and his medical records, and have updated our story to add context about his pre-existing health problems. This additional detail gives readers a greater understanding of this situation. This is why so often the media will run with something that comes from, for instance, Hamas's propaganda wing, the health organization. But as Seth Mandel said, that the terrible Hamas lies that the Jews did this, that's what they always say, spreads around the world. Over the weekend, the journalist David Collier revealed that the Palestinian child, who'd been used by nearly every major news organization as a living representation of the mass starvation of Gazan children, was in fact suffering from cerebral palsy and hypoxemia, plus apparently a genetic disorder. The unambiguous image of the boy's skeletal frame in his mother's arm is indeed heartbreaking. Terribly sad, as well as the fact that the boy is now fatherless. But it does not appear to be the case that, as had been reported at the time, the boy's father was killed by the IDF while looking for food. It does not appear to be the case. Videos and reports strongly suggest the father was killed while looking for Israeli soldiers to engage in battle. Many scenes of urban warfare are deeply tragic, and Gaza is no different. Where Gaza is different is in the desire by global information institutions to lie about what specifically is creating those scenes, and for otherwise intelligent people to embrace those lies, because it's less stressful and less lonely to live in an online world where the Israelis are always monsters and the truth is treated as a distraction. A baby starving to death whose father was shot by Israelis while searching for food for a suffering child. It's the kind of story that so completely flatters a certain worldview that the holders of the worldview ought to treat it with respectful skepticism. If something is, and this is a horrible way to word it, but you understand what I'm saying, is if something's too good to be true to confirm your worldview, it most likely is. And that is not contained just to the Democrat Party. I've seen Republicans fall for it too. If something seems too good to be true to fit your worldview, that you can push it, very often there's much more to it. But again, this child's suffering is real and tragic, but it was not deemed useful, and so it was falsified in service to the cause. One can forgive the desperation of a parent. One cannot forgive a journalist or a humanitarian who finds it easier to join the mob than to be honest. Lying about famine in Gaza is a tactic that Hamas and its useful idiots have used repeatedly, because the truth is a disadvantage to Hamas's war and propaganda machine. And the truth is, there are real concerns about possible near-term hunger and malnutrition in Gaza because Hamas steals aid, hoards food and medicine away from civilians, and punishes dissent. The truth then is that Hamas has engineered the real suffering in Gaza. And the lie that Israel is intentionally starving children enables Hamas to engineer more suffering by creating global pressure on Israel to let Hamas control the aid again. That way, Hamas can keep the cycle going. And so it matters who is at fault, since being fooled by Hamas's propaganda at this point requires a degree of self-lobotomizing, converts to the cult of Hamas, can get quite defensive about it online. Those of us who have praised Collier or amplified his investigation get criticized for our callous insistence on the truth. Why, I have been asked, should we quibble over the cause of the poor child's suffering? Does it really matter if the Jews are being falsely accused if it raises awareness to the plight of sick Gazans? That is like asking why we take pains to ensure we convict the real perpetrator of a crime. Why are juries so preoccupied with the concepts of guilt and innocent? It's a preposterous question. And anyway, we know precisely why it matters, and so does the questioner. It matters because pro-Palestinian advocates read stories like this and then take it upon themselves to avenge the injustice. It matters because this kind of libel has inspired murderous lunatics to burn an 82-year-old woman alive and to gun down people at the Capital Jewish Museum in broad daylight, and has inspired those in Russia and Amsterdam and assassinations assassination attempts on a Jewish governor and his wife and children during the holiday of Passover, and an almost incomprehensible number of similarly motivated violence and attempted violence pretty much everywhere there are Jews in the past year. And of course, you can talk about the anti-Semitic protests and the on college campuses and the intimidation and threats to Jewish students. But go ahead, close your eyes, spin the globe, and wherever your finger is pointing when it stops will be a place with a likely unprecedented explosion of anti-Semitic activity. But of course, that's the reason the photo of the Palestinian child was published and shared. And it's the reason the next one will be shared, and the one after that, and the one after that. Pointing to a suffering child and saying the Jews did this, when in fact the Jews did no such thing, is an intentional act. Considering the number of people who are insisting that the truth of a story doesn't matter, they believe it's a less lonely way to live is to give up on your core beliefs. Democrat lawmaker held a town hall thinking it would be a friendly affair. He was repeatedly interrupted by audience members shouting about Gaza. It was Representative Bill Foster of Illinois. The town hall comes as House members have returned to their districts for a weeks-long district work period. The war in Gaza and U.S. support for Israel has been a long simmering political flashpoint. So now you have kind of the left turning on the left here, where you have liberals believing that their representatives are not doing enough, and in this case, pushing in many instances this kind of anti-Semitic rhetoric. So those are just a couple of updates. Also, I did want to mention, where was that before we go to break, just to tie this all in. Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Egypt have all signed declarations calling for Hamas to disarm and end the rule of Gaza. This was at the UN 2 state confab. Arab countries, including Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and Egypt, have signed onto a statement calling for Hamas to disarm and end its rule of Gaza in a bid to end the devastating war in the Palestinian territory. 17 countries, plus the European Union and Arab League, are throwing their weight behind a 7-page text agreed at a United Nations conference on reviving the two-state solution for Israel and Palestinians. Okay, there you go. Just as an update. When we come back, a quick, I don't know if you want to call it an update, a quick, get some waves outside today too. We're already up to 12. It's only 6:37. We've got an update on Lee Zeldin that I think you're going to find very interesting. Of course, we have Climate Fact Friday with Bob, who Bob is kind enough to send us in a climate change fact. So this will tie in directly with that as we talk about energy as so much as well. So stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
One of my migraine strikes, and I've taken a triptan. Side effects like dizziness can throw me off. Ugh, migraine again. Ubrelvy works differently. It keeps me in rhythm, quickly stopping migraine pain within 2 hours. And some have pain relief that lasts all day, so I can handle whatever the day may throw at me. Don't take if allergic or with strong CYP3A4 inhibitors. Tell your doctor all medicines you take. Report increased blood pressure or color changes, pain, or numbness in fingers or toes. Get help right away for allergic reactions like trouble breathing, face, mouth, tongue, or throat swelling, which may occur days after use. Ask your doctor how you can stop migraine attacks and stay in rhythm with Ubrelvy.
Are you having hearing your TV or listening to conversations in loud spaces? Then it might be time to consider Nano hearing aids. Don't mistake Nanos for cheap amplifiers. Nanos are FDA-registered OTC hearing aids, which means no more having to go to a doctor and spend thousands. Nano hearing aids are now offering $100 off through this special TV offer. Order right now and get 2 CIC rechargeable hearing aids for only $297. And if you're not happy, return them for a full refund.
When you're on, don't forget to visit our Facebook page at Big Fox News. Catch up on news from the Twin Tiers and hear about local events. All on Facebook.com/Big Fox News.
If you are one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Let's go to the Steuben Senior Services Fund section of our program, where we read viewer comments. Mark writes in, as far as Letitia James, that boils down to 6 lawsuits a month. Isn't that extreme? And she is not above the law. She is being investigated herself. I know. Again, it boils down to people, and I get it. Let's say, we've all been talking about it with investigations and all that. They do not move as quickly as we'd like them to see, but she is being investigated for, I think technically mortgage fraud. Allegedly mortgage fraud. Okay. 6 lawsuits. Isn't that amazing? So over 30, or I guess it's 30. Let's say it's 30 lawsuits that Letitia James has thrown at the Trump administration. Next up, they cropped the photo. Standing next to the mother was her other son, who was perfectly healthy. Again, that's too many people buy into that propaganda, and it's led to, like we see, the anti-Semitism on college campuses and in the streets. We've even seen it locally with some of the signs that you read. It's people, again, and this is a note to both political parties. If something fits your worldview too perfectly, take a step back and make sure you're not pushing the wrong information. Now, in this case, it unfortunately will not discredit those using it, because they'll just continue along and they'll find, again, like that piece said, they'll find something else to latch onto that's not accurate and just keep pushing the narrative that it is Israel to blame for everything, the blame Israel first crowd. Okay, let's give you an update from Lee Zeldin, former New York gubernatorial candidate and now Environmental Protection Agency administrator. He is moving to repeal an Obama-era emissions finding he once dubbed the, quote, holy grail of the climate change religion, that underpinned $1 trillion in regulations, leading to higher energy costs for more than a decade. Zeldin revealed plans to rescind the 2009 endangerment finding during a speech at an auto dealership on Tuesday, promising, quote, to end 16 years of uncertainty for automakers and American consumers with the largest deregulatory announcement in U.S. history. In our work so far, many stakeholders have told me that the Obama and Biden EPAs twisted the law, ignored precedent, and warped science to achieve their preferred ends and stick American families with hundreds of billions of dollars in hidden taxes every year, said Zeldin. We heard loud and clear the concern that EPA's greenhouse gas emission standards themselves, not carbon dioxide, with the finding never assessed independently, was the real threat to Americans' livelihood. If finalized, rescinding the endangerment finding and resulting regulations would end $1 trillion or more in hidden taxes on American businesses and families. The EPA had projected that rescinding the finding could save American consumers alone up to $54 billion in annual costs. Now, under Obama, the EPA determined that carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, hydrofluorocarbons, perfluorocarbons, and sulfur hexafluoride emissions, primarily from cars, were threatening to the, quote, public health and welfare of the current and future generations. No immediate regulations were imposed, but the findings allowed the 44th president's administration to put forward 7 subsequent rulings affecting the auto industry, as well as others touching on energy issues. Zeldin's proposal would scrap the finding that allowed both Obama and Biden and their EPAs to regulate emissions by vehicles that are light, medium, and heavy duty, as well as those with heavy-duty engines, under Section 202A of the Clean Air Act. We also, and I think this is worth mentioning, hooray, says the Post editorial board, to Donald Trump and Lee Zeldin for moving to roll back trillions of dollars in federal mandates by undoing the Obama-era greenhouse gas endangerment finding. And as we said, we just gave you the updates on that because it gave the findings gave the EPA regulation over the factories, power plants, auto emissions, those type of things, which included, by the way, the very well documented and very much hated stop-start feature on your car. We talked about this. Lee Zeldin championed getting rid of that. Many of us have it where you pull up to a red light and your car engine shuts off, and then when the red light turns green, and it starts back up. We talked about that extensively when he first brought it up. None of it ever made sense. Congress created the EPA in 1970 to fight actual poisons in our water and air, not to manage complex bank shock contingencies as the endangerment finding envisioned. After long teasing the repeal, Zeldin finally made the largest deregulatory action in the history of America official yesterday. It'll be a huge win for energy sanity. And it is being overlooked by the media because they're trying to cover so many other things about Trump and try to attack him on whatever. Epstein, you name it. After all, anti-carbon mandates do major immediate harm to public health by making electricity and other goods far more expensive. This green madness is a major reason why Western Europe has seen next to zero economic growth over the last 2 decades. And much of it makes little sense even as anti-climate change policy. The EPA itself admits that the vehicle stop-start feature, which kills internal combustion engines at red lights, hasn't shown clear reduction in emissions. Yes, cutting carbon emission is an important long-term goal, but trying to make them zero immediately is nuts, especially when China is still building new coal plants at a record pace. The nation and the world is far better served by the Trump drive to boost U.S. energy production and ensure a plentiful and reliable supply of cheaper electricity to meet the growing demands of manufacturers and AI companies. For all progressives' current talk of affordability, energy costs remains by far the single most important issue when it comes to improving public health and quality of life. But the anti-carbon cult has a death grip on the elites, who set the Democratic agenda. Expect a vast wave of propaganda posing as news and pretending to be science in response to Zeldin's move. Lawsuits as well, since Democrats snuck language declaring greenhouse gases to be pollutants into the utterly mislabeled Inflation Reduction Act 3 years ago. Republicans in Congress need to put rolling back that absurdity high on their agenda when Congress convenes in the fall. I thought, because we talk so often about global warming, talk so often about these energy policies, I thought that was worth mentioning. All right, when we come back, we're going to talk about the updates from the Manhattan shooting. We don't have any real new updates on the tsunami, the earthquake that has led to the potential for these tsunamis. If we do, we'll let you know. Keep those comments, keep those waves coming in. And we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
When you're online, don't forget to visit our Facebook page at Big Fox News. Catch up on news from the Twin Tiers. Vote on the daily question and hear about local events. All on Facebook.com/Big Fox News.
Confidence isn't given, it's built. One choice, one moment, one step at a time. How you feel is how you play. It starts with a click. Invisalign.
Get for the 183rd Chemung County Fair, July 29th through August 2nd at the Chemung County Fairgrounds in Horseheads. Experience thrilling rides, exciting games, and captivating livestock shows. Taste delicious fair food and explore local vendors. Catch grandstand favorites like truck and tractor pulls, demolition derbies, Black Cat Drivers Stunt Car Show, and the Battle of the Bands on July 31st. Join us for the 183rd Chemung County Fair. Visit ChemungCountyFair.com for tickets and details.
Tire Warning is your back-to-school tune-up authority. Family service you can trust. Save big on all brand name tires, suspensions, oil changes, inspections, tune-ups, and exhaust. We give you peace of mind this school season. Your car, your kid's car, your off-to-college car. We have all kinds of tires for all kinds of vehicles. We love tires. We love maintaining your vehicles.
I would highly recommend them.
We came in, 5 minutes, we're in and out.
Get the job done right the first time.
Tire World of Corning Family Service.
Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. We're already up to 15 waves, I've got to say. It's summertime, we always get a few less waves, but I do have to admit, a lot of those waves coming from outside with people walking and enjoying the weather. So step it up, viewer audience. Hey, we hate to bring up this tragedy, and we hate to bring up the fact that this ever happened, of course, but that the need to politicize it from those on the left, and the need to politicize it in a way, and I think in an important manner, when you look at the mayoral's race and when you look at crisis handling, how Mamdani will do. But New York City shooter Shane Tamura, we learned, built the AR-15 that he used in that deadly rampage piece by piece, and his boss had supplied a key part. So they're looking into that. Why was the boss involved? Was it? So that's kind of a new little bit that we learned. We did learn, and this is how sick, when I talk about the politicalization, how sick society has become. We remember when Luigi Mangione became a star to many after he had shot the Blackstone executive. Well, sick social media trolls celebrated the death of Wesley LePatner, the Blackstone executive killed in Monday's Midtown mass shooting, sharing depraved Luigi Mangione-inspired memes. A photo of her with the phrase Luigi'd stamped in red across her face. Can you imagine the hate that's in your heart when you hear of some innocent person being shot to death and you want to make what you think is a funny or cute meme to get people's attention, and the shock value of making a joke about now 2 people murdered in cold blood? Wesley LePatner, CEO of Blackstone Real Estate Income Trust, has been evicted from the mortal plane, wrote one tasteless post on Facebook that got thousands of likes. This comes after Luigi Mangione accused of killing United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. I think I worded it strangely before. I know she did not work for the same group as Brian Thompson. If I worded it that way, I did not mean to. And that was back on December 4th. You remember that. Other people posting CEO down. She's a mother of 2 who was killed trying to leave work. It's people have gotten sick when it comes to this type of thing because of their hatred of, in this case, CEOs, and their hatred of business. We've learned more about these victims. Her mother of 2. We know that one of the victims was a Cornell University graduate, somewhat recent graduate. I think it said 2020. We also know that hero cop, Darul Islam, who was gunned down, is being hailed as a doting father, a generous neighbor, and a shining example of the best of the NYPD. Police officer Islam represented the very best of our department, the NYPD said. He was protecting New Yorkers from danger when his life was tragically cut short today. We join in prayer during the time of incomprehensible pain. We will forever honor his legacy. We also learn that because of the news of his shooting and his ultimate death, the father of slain officer Islam actually suffered a stroke from hearing the news. This is something that grows. I mean, with the families that are affected, with the loved ones and friends that are affected. I believe his 3rd child is to be born next month, or I think due in the next month. And you have people online making jokes about it. You have people like Mamadani who would call for defunding the police, talking about if he becomes mayor, getting rid of that elite force that went in to stop the chaos, to stop the tragedy. And as Carol had mentioned, that I didn't get a chance to read yesterday's program, and I read it today. You had people that when they called for defunding the police, wanted to replace them with social workers. You imagine social workers in that scenario. We do have a couple other things about this, because we know that when something like this happens, unfortunately, instantly the calls for gun control and the politicalization of it. We'll talk about it when we come back. Stay with us.
Attention, Elmeron may lead to vision loss.
If you have suffered vision problems after taking Elmeron to treat bladder pain, call the Hearn Law Firm. Elmeron may be responsible for your vision problems, and you may deserve compensation for your injuries.
If you took Elmeron and now have vision problems, call the Hearn Law Firm at 888-308-3866 right now. You could find out if you qualify in less than 2 minutes. Call 888-308-3866 for your free case review.
It's PM somewhere. Do you know where your kids are online?
J.D. Power has ranked Nissan #1 in new vehicle quality among mainstream brands. And to celebrate, you can now get in one of these award-winning SUVs with 0% APR for 60 months. The all-new turbocharged Nissan Murano, the rugged Nissan Pathfinder, and the best-selling Nissan Rogue. Visit Nissan today and drive away in an award-winning SUV.
Now get 0% APR for 60 months on select popular models or get a low $239 per month lease on Rogue.
You're watching Big Fox, WYDC TV, Elmira Corning.
When you're online, don't forget to visit our Facebook page at Big Fox News. Catch up on news from the Twin Tiers and hear about local events. All on Facebook.com/Big Fox News.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. And let's go to the Steuben Senior Services Fund section of the program where we read viewer comments. This will be a perfect way to wrap up our number one. Where does the time go? I know. This viewer, and I'm almost hesitant to read it because it's so offensive, but I'll read it anyway. I actually like the auto shut-off red light system. I'm just kidding about the offensive part. Especially at very long red lights. Saves on my engine hour meter. Also, the manufacturer has to install a better starter motor than if I press the auto stop button off. I'll never need to replace my starter. I was actually upset when I bought my new truck during COVID parts shortage when Ford couldn't get chips. All they took off the price was $50. It's also very handy when you're in a traffic jam or behind a car accident on the highway waiting for traffic to move. Sometimes viewers go too far. No, I'm just kidding. I appreciate that. I think you're the only one that has said that. That is not to criticize you. I'm glad that you have a different opinion on it. I know I'm not the biggest fan when my car starts and stops 5 times from the end of Market Street to around the block. It's not my favorite thing, but you do raise a good point. If you are stuck in traffic, I have had that situation, and that's not bad. Another comment. Mark writes in, as far as Hochul calling for more gun control, how about vehicle knife control? A deranged person will use anything that they can use to kill. You're right. But we say that as in a way, well, if they're going to do this, why don't they do this? They probably will. That's a radicalization of the Democrat Party, pushing more extremes. Yes, Hochul did call for a nationwide ban on, quote, assault weapons. This was on CNN's Inside Politics. She said, I'm sitting in Midtown right now. My office is just a few blocks away, and walking in this morning, and you see the security guards down there, and everyone is just wondering, is this a one-off? Could this happen again? I mean, that sense of security is shattered when someone comes from another state carrying an assault weapon designed only for battlefields, but intending to use that to commit mayhem and mass murder in our cities. This is happening because there are still assault weapons in our country. If every state had the same laws uniformly, you could not have a situation where we fight really hard in the state of New York to make sure that we have the toughest gun laws in the nation. We have the lowest of the large states' homicide rate by guns. New York City, New York State has the lowest homicide rate by guns in the nation for large states, and that's because of laws that are working. We want the same sense of urgency to go out across the nation. We had an assault weapons ban in our country for 10 years. It worked successfully. It lapsed under President Bush, and I say bring it back. She also, we'll fact check it and say it's false. She said that he was allowed to have an AR-15 because he had a concealed carry permit, and claimed that permit allowed him to have an AR-15. That's false. Have a concealed carry permit centers on the carrying of handguns for self-defense, not rifles. As governor, that is and someone who's pushing more gun control laws, that is something she should be aware of. Also, having a concealed carry permit does not allow a visitor to ignore the laws of the state to which they travel. So just trying to push her agenda, as is normally the case, unfortunately, from politicians when they see a tragedy like this, especially a tragedy involving a gun. They use it to push their political agenda, and it's frustrating. We have to prepare for it. We have to, as soon as we see the breaking news, unfortunately, that's one of the first things you think of is how are they going to try to politicize it, and that's what we're seeing in the aftermath. But we got to take a break. Wrapping up hour number 1. Hour number 2, mere moments away. Stay with us.
Hi, this is Tom Witzel, owner of Hesselsen's in Amara Heights. At Hesselsen's, we care about your well-being and overall health, whether it's relieving stress, muscle recovery, increasing circulation, or just revitalizing the body. Hesselsen's now has 2 complete line of infrared and traditional rock saunas in our new and expanded showroom. Come in today and see why owning a sauna is the start of your new healthy lifestyle. Hesselsen's is still locally and family-owned and operated in Amira Heights. After 70 years, it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hesselsen's.
County Office for the Aging will be hosting a public hearing on Thursday, September 18th at First Presbyterian Church in Bath. This hearing is to review the 2026 Annual Implementation Plan for the Older Americans Act and the Steuben County Office for the Aging. This public hearing will take place at 9 a.m. on Thursday, September 18th in the Fellowship Hall of the First Presbyterian Church in Bath. Copies of the plan will be available at the Office for the Aging.
World's poorest places. Children with cleft conditions live in darkness and shame. They're shunned, outcast, living in pain. You can reach out and change the life of a suffering child right now. A surgery that takes as little as 45 minutes. And your act of love can change a child's life forever. Please call or visit operationsmile.org now. Thousands of children.
And welcome to hour number 2 of Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We are broadcasting live and proudly from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. We were talking some updates about the senseless killing in Manhattan, that shooting. Well, we've covered a lot this morning. A little bit about the tsunamis that we're trying to learn more about as things unfold. It is clearly a very breaking story. Some of the advisories have been canceled throughout the areas, and some of them have been. It's just Hawaii's airport temporarily closed to allow people to use runway to evacuate. So it's too much of a breaking story to be able to get you too much of the information, but we'll try to do our best. But feel free to weigh in at any point during the broadcast on any of the topics of the day or even things we're not talking about. But let's get to go back to this topic specifically. We had talked about Governor Hochul calling for more gun control, falsely suggesting that because he had a concealed carry permit in Vegas, that gave him a right to cross state lines and to carry an AR-15. It seems like a law that, unless she's completely lying to people watching CNN, which isn't that many people, so you don't have to worry, but maybe she's outright lying to them, or she doesn't know the laws on the books, which is perhaps more troubling when it comes from the governor. But we also had New York Assemblyman Alex Boros saying, quote, "It's finally time for us to have a nationwide ban on assault weapons, on these AR-15 style weapons. We shouldn't be in these discussions on the ticky-tack aspects of the specific guns. We need to be taking action to keep people safe. Exactly where we draw the line on exactly what kind of weapon we can discuss. I think as our governor said this morning, it's finally time for us to have a nationwide ban on assault weapons, on these AR-15 style weapons." Now, one was a pistol and a different one. And I expect many of my colleagues in elected office to pick at specific distinctions in weapons. But what's clear is no one should have a magazine that can shoot 30 rounds. No one should have such a high-powered and maneuverable weapon and be able to walk around city streets or drive it into our state. So I'm not familiar with Assemblyman Alex Boros, but he believes that his opinion is more important than the Constitution, that he should be judge, jury, and executioner and decide who has their Second Amendment right and who doesn't. Very interesting. That's quite an ego on a New York State Assemblyman. So again, he should decide what kind of weapon, what kind of gun you should be able to have in your possession to protect your family. And let's keep in mind, he's probably not overly familiar, let's face it, with rural New York. I'm sure he's more focused on the city But he doesn't realize if you, heaven forbid, had to call a police officer because someone had broken into your house, it could take a lot longer than if it happens in the city. It could take half an hour, depending on where you live, 45 minutes, even if it takes 10 minutes. That's a long time to sit there and cower and hope that nothing happens. So we talk about the right to protect yourself and your family, and he believes he has the right as an assemblyman to take away that from you, to take away your right to defend yourself, your family. So Brian Keeler said, you said it was a pistol? He said, technically it's defined as a pistol, though obviously it had a shoulder stock, and so to the eye, many would call it an assault rifle. I think it is technically classified as a pistol and lacked the rifling. But my point is that we shouldn't be in the discussion on the ticky-tack aspects of the specific guns. We need to be taking action to keep people safe. Exactly where we draw the line on exactly what kind of weapon we can discuss. But New York has already banned this style of weapon in our state. There's nothing we can do in other states if they are going to keep selling it. There you are. Now, when it comes to this crisis, when you think of it from a political standpoint, the crisis of a mass tragedy, Zohran Mamdani is getting a lot of pushback, a lot of criticism, because he was in talks, or planning to, I should say, disband the elite NYPD task force that responded to the deadly shooting. Now, he received a lot of criticism when he went on and said he was grateful for the law enforcement agents. He was grateful. He said today the NYPD deployed the strategic response group. Let me take a step back. I'm getting all worked up because we have so much to cover here. He called in the past, remember, he went on Twitter yesterday and said, send his condolences and thanked law enforcement. But if you look on December 19th of last year, he said today the NYPD deployed the Strategic Response Group, SRG, to harass and arrest striking Amazon workers. As mayor, I will disband the SRG, which has cost taxpayers millions in lawsuit settlements and brutalized countless New Yorkers exercising their First Amendment rights. As mayor, I just read that. The SRG is a special operations division of the NYPD that responds to citywide mobilizations, civil disorders, and major events. They also mobilize for emergency events like shootings and bank robberies. Mamdani has faced a spate of criticism for his past smears of the NYPD, which includes social posts from 2020 when he called to defund the police. Remember, he said after the shooting, grateful for all our first responders on the ground. But among those first at the scene were the members of the SRG, who then stormed into the building to ensure the shooter had been contained. One cop saying, Mamdani, he's a joke. He only wants to ban SRG because they are the ones responding to his people's protests. U.S. Representative Elise Stefanik continued to pile on. Flashback, Kathy Hochul's very own Kami Mamdani. Ooh, I don't know if she came up with that, but I like that. Kathy Hochul's very own Kami Mamdani. A disgrace and truly unfit to be mayor of New York City. We don't need an investigation to know that the and she shared the post that he had posted in the past saying we don't need an investigation to know that the NYPD is racist, anti-gay, and a major threat to public safety. What we need is to defund the NYPD. So that's what Elise Stefanik was referring to. Hochul quipped, seriously going after an unelected official who said something back in 2020? Come on, give me a break. Ask her the question. What are you going to make your constituents safe? She said. All right, so the back and forth here. Democrat political operative and longtime police union advisor Ken Friedman said Mamdani is a hypocritical and irony deficient. He can't say he's heartbroken over the Midtown mass shooting and praise first responders while calling for disbanding the Strategic Response Group. So even Politico and New York Times criticizing Mamdani. Mass shooting becomes Mamdani's first test as a mayoral nominee. Rival Andrew Cuomo blasted the Democrat socialist over his response to the shooting and his past positions to defund the police. And keep in mind, his first, and both Politico and the New York Times both commented that he was in Uganda at the time of the shooting. So posting from Uganda, where he was vacationing, that immediately came under fire, with critics attacking his past calls to defund the police and urging him to forego the sentiment. His second response, also posted on X, acknowledged Islam's death, but did so 11 hours after it was first reported, because his campaign people, I'm sure, got around him and said, you better get right on track with this. Mamdani is facing his first full-blown crisis on his way to the general election, which is just 4 months away. He's now contending with a time-worn tradition in New York City politics. The recriminations that almost inevitably follow as civic trauma and the expectations that elected leaders be present when such a rupture occurs. This is a reality check. Public safety is literally a matter of life and death, former Governor Andrew Cuomo said. His positions when it comes to public safety are abhorrent and wholly disconnected with any responsible government approach. And again, the New York Times, I would say, putting out a piece that was not favorable of Mamdani, which is shocking, saying the shooting may put concerns over gun violence back on voters' minds and may lead some to further scrutinize Mr. Mamdani, who has relatively limited experience in government and has not handled a high-profile crisis while in office. Mr. Mamdani, a Democrat socialist, embraced calls to defund the police in 2020, but no longer supports doing so. While some other mayoral candidates have called for hiring thousands of police officers, Mr. Mamdani has said that he would keep the police headcount at its current levels and create a new city agency focused on addressing mental health issues. Mr. Mamdani was traveling back to New York City on Tuesday and planned to arrive by early Wednesday from Uganda, according to a person who was familiar with the matter. So not necessarily a glowing review of Mamdani in this, and former Governor Cuomo, who knows how to use an opportunity, is doing so. He clearly does not understand what public safety is all about, Cuomo said, and he clearly does not understand the role of the police, the sacrifice they're making. I don't understand why you go to Uganda for 2 weeks, frankly, in the middle of a campaign. I didn't take a two-week vacation in 16 years. I've never heard of that. Now, Miss Hochul, Governor Hochul, defended Mamdani in an appearance on CNN when asked about Stefanik's criticism, because as I said, Stefanik saying Kathy Hochul's very old commie Mamdani, a disgrace and truly unfit to be mayor of New York City. This is about as pathetic as it gets, said Governor Hochul. I mean, seriously, going after an unelected official who said something back in 2020 when many people were, I mean, come on, give me a break. She also criticized Stefanik, saying, stand up to the gun lobby and show that you have the courage to do something that's actually pretty useful, instead of just complaining on tweets. Okay. She say stuff so awkwardly, Governor Hochul. This isn't just a criticism of her to criticize her, but everything comes off a little bit disjointed. When we come back, just a little bit more on that, because sadly, even through all of this, Mamdani's still the clear favorite, but we'll move along from this because we do have other major issues to get to. I want to talk about the Democrat Party. There's a lot of infighting there as they try to get their message, try to get back into political favor, because right now polls show that they are considered too radical, that they have hit their lowest favorability ratings, I think they said on record. So we're going to talk about that when we come back as well. And I see a lot of comments coming in, so stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking after this. Oh, wrong one. That was close. After this.
We are proud to serve our country, to serve our local communities, to wear the uniform, to be a soldier, to serve abroad when and where duty calls. We are ready to stand with our brothers and sisters to defend, to serve, to fight. We're always ready, we're always there. We are the New York Army National Guard.
When you're on, don't forget to visit our Facebook page at Big Fox News. Catch up on news from the Twin Tiers. Vote on the daily question and hear about local events. All on Facebook.com/Big Fox News.
Confidence isn't given, it's built. One choice, one moment, one step at a time. How you feel is how you play. It starts with a click. Invisalign.
Fox 10 p.m. News is the first primetime local news for the Twin Tiers. Our reporters, Haley and Dante, scour the southern tier to bring you up-to-date news regarding local businesses, economics, and how national decisions impact our area. If you're not near a TV, don't worry. You can also catch our 10 p.m. news live on WYDCTV.com/livestream. Don't miss Big Fox 10 p.m. news on WYDC, on TV, or our website.
If you are one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. It's almost like a painting out there this morning. It's so beautiful on historic Market Street, located in the heart of the Gafford District. Welcome back as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio. Let's go to viewer comments. This section of our program brought to you by Steuben Senior Services Fund, empowering seniors to age at home. Here, we got a lot of great comments. And to counterattack Hochul, Elise Stefanik is putting in a bill to allow New York State residents to have pistol permits to purchase guns that are illegal in this state now. Yeah, we talked about that a little bit yesterday. And of course, she's doing it at the federal level. But listen, first of all, I think Hochul had a very weak response to Stefanik. I think Stefanik hit a nerve there, Kami Mandami, I like that, saying, putting some of the blame on Kathy Hochul. Hochul, again, from a political standpoint, just pure politics, she always just seems disjointed, or her response just always seems a little bit off, doesn't it? In her counterattack, if you will, to Stefanik. Those two, if Stefanik gets in, it is going to be a blast to watch that debate. But again, Stefanik saying that she will make that announcement in November, after the November election. The question I ask is about that, and I don't have the answer. I would love to know your thoughts. Let's say in November, and she looks at the numbers she wanted to look at after the election, and she says, no, I'm not going to do it. Then the Republican Party is up the proverbial creek. I don't know. So I don't really understand. And it's not to knock her. I just don't understand. That's why I'm asking your thoughts. I know we had someone say, well, maybe she's waiting until the end of summer because she wants to spend summer with her family and those type of things. Sure. But now we're talking November. Wow. Anyway, I thought she did a good job in all of her combating with Governor Hochul. Okay, next up. This viewer writes, after years of allowing and almost even encouraging violence in these cities, these Democrats run, by the way, meaning the cities, they act surprised that there are more of these incidents. It boggles my mind when they act surprised. It's outrageous. I suggest a statewide ban on Democrats. Problem solved. Thank you very much. There is, Jasmine Crockett got that glowing profile in the Atlantic. If you look at some of the rhetoric she's used, and maybe you can say in this case, this guy seemed very mentally unstable, obviously, but there was some issues with the NFL perhaps that he had, and whatever the case may be. But we've seen the encouragement of violence in the Democrat Party. Again, I'm not equating it to what happened in Manhattan, but to that viewer's point, that has become common rhetoric, unfortunately. Comment from a different viewer regarding climate change. I just want to point out that once people started to talk about it, Freon was the scapegoat because it was claimed that it was responsible for depleting the ozone layer and therefore was causing global warming. Now the talk concerns carbon emissions. So what's the real cause? I believe the answer is that global warming and cooling is a natural phenomenon, i.e. it has been well documented that the Earth has gone through 5 ice ages. What do you think? I couldn't agree more. I think you're spot on. They're looking for a scapegoat. They're looking for something to blame, just to put more control over your life, to have more control over everything that you do. Look at Freon. How many people? I still hear people say that without Freon in the cars and the air conditioning, things like that, it doesn't work as good. You hear so many of these politicians, just like sadly with this tragedy in New York City. What's the first thing they do? You never let a good crisis go to waste, right? Wasn't it Rahm Emanuel who said that? So they go after your guns. Hochul did it. Couldn't wait to go on CNN and call for gun control. In the case of global warming, if they see some type of natural occurring phenomenon, they'll say, well, it's global warming. We need to take away your natural gas hookup. We need to, and it all boils down to what? Power over you and more money. the two things they strive for the most. So you're exactly on. That's what I think, and I think you're right, viewer. Comment from a different viewer. LOL, Frank really struck a chord with the on-off red light system. My brother hates it also. No off switch on your auto start-stop would be very annoying. I think that's the first time we have ever had a different opinion. Well, there's a first time for everything. Yeah, it's not a big deal, but I know I just don't personally like it. But then again, I never had a vehicle with it until recently, having purchased this vehicle. And having had before this vehicle many junk cars, the instant anxiety and heart palpitations when the car went off the first time flashed me back to numerous times on the side of the road waiting for AAA. Maybe that's where it all comes from. Maybe it's like a past past trauma, we'll say. Maybe that's where some of my problem goes. Also, I know we talked about this before. I just can't, to my opinion, just can't be good on the starter. But yes, I think that's, if we got to disagree on something, I think that's a pretty easy, that's not a bad one. Not a bad one. So Michael Goodwin says, sensible New Yorkers didn't need yet another reason to vote against Mamdani for mayor, but the horrific Midtown slaughter provided a clear illustration of why the radical Democrat must not win the keys to City Hall. Mamdani is in Uganda celebrating his wedding, but his initial statement about the bloodbath on Park Avenue rings hollow given his past smears of the NYPD and his repeated calls to defund the police. By the time his statement was released, Mayor Adams and Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch already had visited the scene and identified the dead officer as the Darul Islam, who was killed while providing off-duty lobby security for 345 Park Ave. The mayor and the commissioner said he had emigrated from Bangladesh, had 2 children, and was expecting a third with his pregnant wife. Adams, in moving remarks, said the officers were doing what he does best, saving lives. He was protecting New Yorkers. Nonetheless, it took Mamdani another 6 hours before he named Officer Islam and repeated the biographical details Adam and Tisch had revealed. In a second post, Mamdani added that when Islam joined the police department, his mother asked him why he would pursue such a dangerous job. He told her it was to leave behind a legacy that his family could be proud of. He has done that and more, the mayor wannabe said. I pray for him, his family, and honor the legacy of service and sacrifice he leaves behind. Fair enough. But given his past attacks on the NYPD and his immaturity, it remains impossible to imagine Mamdani providing leadership or reassurance to a stricken police force and a rattled city at a moment of distress. The candidate, who's 33 years old, and his burn-it-all-down attitude about long-established norms and traditions, especially his socialist, anti-Semitic, and anti-police positions, make for a poor comparison next to the splendid example of Adams and Tisch and what they offered on Monday. Both are seasoned public servants whose experience and values made for a compelling lesson in crisis leadership. The mayor wore the NYPD uniform for 20 years and is seeking re-election in the general election as an independent. Other candidates on the ballot, of course, former Governor Andrew Cuomo, Republican Curtis Sliwa. Meanwhile, Mamdani is a rich kid socialist whose wealthy parents made it possible for him to avoid work and try to become a rap artist. Indeed, he seems never to have held an actual job before winning election to the assembly 4 years ago, which should never be confused with full-time work. One of the few things he's done is steep himself in the toxic brew of NYPD hatred. And we don't have to read all of his, we've read them already, his tweets. And there's so many of them here that I just can't get to all of them. Even before chilling, reports say the refugee from the failed administration, oh, I'm sorry, this was in reference to, I think, de Blasio's mayoralship and wanting to emulate that. Pray that New Yorkers are smart enough to say no and heck no to Mamdani. But if you look at the numbers, a stunning new poll finds that Mamdani's rivals have little chance even if the rivals team up. He is projected to handily win the November general election with 50% of likely voters in the latest survey. Ex-Governor Cuomo came in distant second at 22%, while Curtis Sliwa pulled 13%, and Adams at 7%. And Politico said, I think maybe they use 50% of the vote, that Zoran dominates in the new poll. So keep that in mind when we talk about the gubernatorial race, because those people that are voting for Zoran Mamdani are also going to have the right to vote in our governor's election. So keep that in mind when we look at the state of not just the Democrat Party nationwide, but the state of the Democrat Party in New York State and the state of New York State. How many times can I say state? But I think it is important to keep that in mind because it is always an uphill battle in New York. Quickly, just one other thing on New York, and then I want to move on to talk about the Democrat Party. But since this is a New York issue, 2 New York Republicans are urging the IRS to probe 4 legal and migrant advocacy groups that have been taking taxpayer funding while defying the Trump administration's illegal immigration crackdown. Nicole Malatakis and Claudia Tenney questioned the 4 groups' nonprofit status in a letter to the IRS after an expose by the New York Post that revealed the group took in more than $600 million in public funds while simultaneously pushing New York's sanctuary policies. Quote, "We are concerned that these organizations may be using tax-exempt resources to provide goods, services, or legal advice that 1, encourages, 2, induce, or 3, aid and abet an alien in unlawful entering, remaining in, or evading detection within the United States," said the letter to the IRS commissioner. The pro-sanctuary groups, the Bronx Defenders, the New York Immigration Coalition, Make the Road New York, and New York Lawyer for the Public Interest provide legal services to poor New Yorkers, including criminal defendants and migrants. They said based on prior IRS enforcement of rules for charitable groups, the group's sanctuary activities, quote, constitutes grounds for revocation of tax-exempt status. So there's just a quick update. When we come back, the Democrat Party and this infighting where everybody's looking to be the leader of the resistance. And I see we've got a lot of comments. Keep those comments coming in. Keep those waves coming in. We were gangbusters in the 7 o'clock hour. Now we're slowing down a little bit. That's okay. I understand. People getting ready for work. People getting ready to enjoy another scorcher out there. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox will be right back.
Well, it's strained. It is? It's a repetitive motion injury. Do you do this a lot?
Well, I do give out a lot of checks. Now, what about this pain in my back?
Tender, huh? Do you play any contact sports?
Thank you.
Wow! That explains it. Stick to friendly nods for the next couple of weeks.
8 p.m. somewhere. Do you know where your kids are online? Steuben County Office for the Aging will be hosting a public hearing on Thursday, September 18th at First Presbyterian Church in Bath. This hearing is to review the 2026 annual implementation plan for the Older Americans Act and the Steuben County Office for the Aging. This public hearing will take place at 9 a.m. on Thursday, September 18th in the Fellowship Hall of the First Presbyterian Church in Bath. Copies of the plan will be available at the Office for the Aging.
Migraine strikes and I've taken a trip down. Side effects like dizziness can throw me off. Migraine again. Ubrelvy works differently. It keeps me in rhythm, quickly stopping migraine pain within 2 hours. And some have pain relief that lasts all day. So I can handle whatever the day may throw at me. Don't take if allergic or with strong CYP3A4 inhibitors. Tell your doctor all medicines you take. Report increased blood pressure or color changes, pain, or numbness in fingers or toes. Get help right away for allergic reactions like trouble breathing, face, mouth, tongue, or throat swelling, which may occur days after use. Ask your doctor how you can stop migraine attacks and stay in rhythm with Ubrelvy.
Your Big Fox, WYDC TV.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Let's go to viewer comments here. Brought to you, this section of our program, brought to you by Steuben Senior Services Fund, empowering seniors to age at home. Good morning, Climate Bob here. Hey, Climate Bob, it's nice to hear you. You don't just have to be on Fridays. We'd love to hear from you anytime. A big thank you to the viewer with a climate comment. You are spot on. Follow the money. The problem is, it is our money that is making these climate commanders rich. Have a great day. Well, thanks, Bob. Yeah, exactly. Spot on. I actually wasn't sure if that comment wasn't you, but I thought you would probably make sure that you had your name in there. So thank you very much. Ken writes in very similar. I know I sound like a broken record, but while the climate change initiative's end result is more control over the minions, the real reason they are pushing it is monetary enrichment for politicians and their donors. No, I agree, Ken. I mentioned it's almost like an added bonus to them, that it's the control over your life and trying to make you almost, in essence, living in a third world country with the restrictions on your day-to-day life. That's just a bonus to them. At the end of the day, they'll be exempt from those. It's kind of like Mayor Bloomberg. Remember him in New York City when he would say, hey, we're banning trans fats, but now have to ban trans fats for himself. They'll be so rich they won't have to follow the same rules that you and I will have to follow. So I agree with you. It's about the money. It's not about, it's a bonus. It's twofold, but money's the most important. But then they get the bonus of having control over your life. Let's take a look at infighting in the Democrat Party. Let's face it, it's not a great time for Democrats. Polling shows that they have very, very historic low, as a matter of fact, favorability ratings, that the common American voter deems them too radical. But many in their own party, the far left in their own party, they want them to be even more aggressive in their resistance. Well, Jasmine Crockett, who we know they wrote that glowing piece about in The Atlantic, it was a piece to praise her, to make her a rising star. She originally tried to somehow kill the article because she didn't like the fact that the person had interviewed other representatives about their thoughts on Jasmine Crockett. It showed you an authoritarian streak, didn't it? You can't just ban an article from coming out because you don't like that a reporter asked other people what they thought of her. Is really quite strange. I guess she is one that's known to try to control the narrative. As a matter of fact, if she would have kept quiet, the quotes were actually very overwhelmingly pretty positive. But because she did that, that became a part of the piece and a part of the glowing piece, so it made her look bad. But she is now attacking. This could be dangerous for her. She's attacking AOC and Bernie Sanders, because now with this Atlantic piece and the laser-like focus of the media on Jasmine Crockett, I'm wondering, she might be trying to make her moves and try to topple that AOC powerhouse. Crockett lambasted the nationwide rallies that the two were holding called Fighting the Oligarchy. This was in the Atlantic piece. During the meeting, Dexter probed Crockett about her relationship with AOC, noting that AOC bumped heads with Nancy Pelosi when she burst onto the scene in 2019. Why is this out of order? Crockett lambasted the nationwide rallies headlined by the lefty pair during a May meeting with Representative Maxine Dexter. There we go. That's why Dexter's involved. I apologize. Downplaying Dexter's concern, Crockett claimed that she wanted to be viewed as working on behalf of the Democrat Party and was not looking to burn it down. She went on to describe the Sanders and AOC rallies are a good idea, but a tour that primarily served the interest of the two lawmakers and not the Democrat Party. The rallies, quote, kind of makes people be like, oh, it's about them, right? Instead of the team. She's got great quotes. Let's do that again. The rallies, quote, kind of makes people be like, oh, it's about them, right? Instead of the team. Ooh. So doing it for self-serving reasons, making it all about them. Interesting. Crockett insisted in the Atlantic profile that she has a positive relationship with AOC, but she thinks that AOC was maybe a little bit more in her own self-interest, a self-serving Fighting the Oligarchy tour. Also, Cory Booker, who also wants to be the face of the resistance, lashed out at Democrats and calling on them to get a backbone because he did something immensely historic, just amazing in the scheme of having a backbone, and that was talking for 25 hours and 5 minutes and accomplishing absolutely nothing at the end of the day, which I think some have said is kind of the Democrat Party in a nutshell. A lot of talk, no action. But because he's going to sell a book about it wasn't even technically a filibuster, but his speech on the floor, trust me, Cory Booker's wanted to run for president for a long time, and he's looking at this as his window. So just like Jasmine Crockett's maybe seeing herself inching away at some of the power of AOC and maybe taking that star away from her, you've got Cory Booker looking to become one of the main 2028 contenders. He lashed out at the Democrat Party while speaking from the Senate floor, stating that his fellow Democrats were complicit in helping Trump's agenda and noting that it was time for Democrats to have a backbone. See, this is Cory Booker looking out for Cory Booker. This is Cory Booker not caring about his party and wanting everybody to just care about him. This is talk about self-serving. So he knows that the Democrats have fought tooth and nail against Trump's agenda and are consistently across the board all no votes. But what he's doing and hoping to get attention from the people that don't know and don't pay attention or don't understand, he's trying to get their attention, saying these guys aren't fighting hard enough. I'm the only one fighting to try to get that reputation for when he runs for president. Think of this. Oh, if I were Democrats, I'd be so outraged. Because he knows full well, and unfortunately a lot of these protesters don't, he knows full well that they are doing as much as they can to resist because they have the minority. That's why they're not getting their agenda through. Then that's why they're fighting everything that Trump does to no avail. And so he knows that. Remember that piece? I think it was it from Axios or Politico, where some representatives were saying that their far left constituents were calling the Democrats, calling their Democrat representative and saying, you're going to have to go to these ICE facilities and you're going to have to get beat up or you're going to have to get shot at or something like that. There's got to be blood to get the attention that we need. That's how radicalized the resistance has become. So Cory Booker is trying to play that person that doesn't realize what happens when you're in the minority in the House, the Senate, and of course the White House being a Republican. His rant came after reports that he and Senator Catherine Cortez Masto were sparring on the floor over a Booker bill related to police. The heated exchange arose after Booker objected to a motion that Senator Catherine Cortez Masto, a Democrat from Nevada, swiftly passed a package of bills related to law enforcement. Booker said he wanted to make a change to the block of measures to ensure resources are distributed equally among law enforcement agencies in response to the Justice Department's changes to grant programs and cancellation of awards. What a wonky thing to get upset about. While speaking on the Senate floor, Booker stated the Democrat Party needed a wake-up call. He also criticized universities and law firms for bending a knee to Donald Trump. I see universities, there should be bastions of free speech, bending at the knee to this president. I see business taking late-night talk show hosts off the air because they dare to insult a president. I see people who want mergers suddenly think they have to pay tribute to this president. He then criticized lawmakers who have been elected to defend the Constitution of the United States for looking the other way and passing resources that won't go to states like Connecticut, Illinois, or New York, but would go to the states that Trump likes. It's time for Democrats to have a backbone. It's time for us to fight. It's time for us to draw lines. And when it comes to the safety of my state being denied these grants, that's why I'm standing here. Don't question my integrity. Don't question my motives. I'm standing for Jersey. I'm standing for my police officers. I'm standing for the Constitution. And I'm standing for what's right. He also expressed that he did not object to Cortez Mastro's two bills, but that he objected to the bills that are putting resources out that states from California to New York are not eligible for. This, to me, is the problem with Democrats in America right now. We're willing to be complicit to Donald Trump to let this pass through when we have all the leverage right now there is to say, if you're as passionate about police as we are, then pass bills out of this body that will help the police officers in Washington, that will help the police officers in Illinois, that will help the police officers in New Jersey. Don't be complicit to the President of the United States, who we both know doesn't understand that language. Oh, please don't hurt blue states. Boy, he loves to bloviate, doesn't he? He loves. But now in this case, he's turning on Democrats, because he is even pushing them aside, hoping to become the lead of the resistance to better his chances in 2028. He's doing a disservice to his Democrat voters, but hey, none of my business. So that's Cory Booker. Now, Democrat, got to take a break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Attention, Elmeron may lead to vision loss.
If you have suffered vision problems after taking Elmeron to treat bladder pain, call the Hearn Law Firm. Elmeron may be responsible for your vision problems, and you may deserve compensation for your injuries.
If you took Elmeron and now have vision problems, call the Hearn Law Firm at 888-308-3866 right now. You could find out if you qualify in less than 2 minutes. Call 888-308-3866 for your free case review.
I have type 2 diabetes, but I manage it well. It's a little pill with a big story to tell. I take once daily, Jardiance, at each day start. As time went on, it was easy to see I'm lowering my A1C.
And for adults with type 2 diabetes and known heart disease, Jardiance can lower the risk of cardiovascular death too.
Serious side effects include increased ketones in blood or urine, which can be fatal. Stop Jardiance and call your doctor right away if you have nausea, vomiting, stomach pain, tiredness, trouble breathing, or increased ketones. Jardiance may cause dehydration that can suddenly worsen kidney function and make you feel dizzy, lightheaded, or weak upon standing. Genital yeast infections in men and women, urinary tract infections, low blood sugar, or a rare life-threatening bacterial infection between and around the anus and genitals can occur. Call your doctor right away if you have fever or feel weak or tired and pain, tenderness, swelling, or redness in the genital area. Don't use if allergic to Jardiance. Stop use if you have a serious allergic reaction. Call your doctor if you have rash, swelling, difficulty breathing, or swallowing. You may have increased risk for lower limb loss. Call your doctor right away if you have new pain or tenderness, sores, ulcers, or infection in your legs or feet.
Jardiance is really swell, the little pill with a big story to tell.
So what's Macy's this week? 2 words. Abercrombie Kids. Here just in time for back to school. Also, the smartest new looks from Jordan and Levi's. There's always something new when you shop at Macy's.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. So another rising Democrat star. I know there's a lot of stars. And at least if you pay attention to what the media is saying. Democrat Governor Wes Moore says the Democrat Party just gave up on certain parts of the United States in the 2024 campaign. He said, I don't know, it's always challenging. If such a large percentage of the country, rightly or wrongly, feel the country is going in the wrong direction. It's just difficult to be the vice president to come into that. And I don't know what she could have done differently or whatever happened. The thing that I think we have to remember to do, though, is I've been deeply disappointed where it feels like there are certain areas and communities that we almost seemingly just gave up on. We just stopped competing. We stopped making the case. We came up with this philosophy where, listen, it all comes down to 3 states. We cede ground. And it's like, do you know who hears this thing is only going to come down to 3 states? The other 47, like, we don't even matter, man. When we hear we don't need to make sure we go after the working voter in Pennsylvania. And that's key. Do you know who hears that? Everybody you're not talking about. And I think we ceded a lot of ground. He said a lot of key Democrat voters felt taken for granted in 2024. And then we get upset, and then we're like, what happened with this group? What happened with that group? And they're saying, like, yo, what happened to the party? I think there needs to be a real level setting about who is our base and who we are fighting for. This is not a game for people. This is not game theory. This is not checkers. They're real life. These are real people. And the thing is, I think that anybody who's talking about 2028 is not taking 2025 very seriously, he added. We as Democrats... Anyway, I think that was it. Then they went on to a different quote. Trump reacted to the suggestion that Democrats should run Jasmine Crockett and Hunter Biden in 2028. He was on an episode of Pod Force One, which is I believe a podcast coming from the New York Post and Miranda Devine. So when asked, what do you think of the Hunter Biden, Jasmine Crockett 2028 Democrat presidential ticket? He said, that would be some ticket. No, these people are crazy, so you never know what's going to happen. He pointed that it could be a joint ticket. The jest came after Trump weighed in on Hunter's decision to come out forcefully in defense of his father, Biden, in a pair of interviews last week. We know all about that. Trump said, well, they had 2 chances to win the election. They had him, and that didn't work out, and he was down by 25 points or something, and then they switched him. It's like taking a prize fighter out in the middle of the fight. It's not fair. They took him out. They put Kamala in. Nobody knew who Kamala was. I guess they say she's going to try it again in 2028. I don't see it. But how about Crockett? Crockett is their new star. He called her a low IQ person. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's the upcoming ticket. Speaking of the Democrat Party and speaking of Joe Biden, 2 top Biden aides are set to testify in the probe on Biden's mental health decline. The committee has scheduled interviews with former Biden counselor Steve Ricchetti and former senior advisor Mike Donnellan for today and Thursday, one each day. In a departure from some previous high-profile witnesses, the two have signaled that they will voluntarily sit down for these hearings. The committee had not issued subpoenas compelling their appearance. Several Biden aides have declined to cooperate, as we know, a lot of pleading the fifth. So that should be interesting today. David Marcus has an opinion piece saying Biden's auto pen is poised for a $10 million payday, which is how much he is receiving for his book. $10 million. He writes, Biden can't undo the terrible harm he did as president, the crushing inflation, the surging border, or the feckless foreign policy disasters. But those in charge of this book have a chance to set the record straight now. Let's pray that they take it, even though we know they almost certainly will not. So his thought is use the auto pen, that use the people behind the scenes to actually write the book for Biden and tell the truth of what really happened. The covering up of his mental decline, the covering up of so much using of the auto pen, the biggest scandal in presidential history. But we've got to take a break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
It's 10 p.m. somewhere. Do you know where your kids are online?
Is this your mom?
Yes.
And that's your dad?
Nope.
I'm the father.
Even if you're the father, you're lying. My family does not like my boyfriend.
Solid family.
I've had enough of this. I'm not your mommy.
Now you're just talking crazy.
Don't do that. I'm not your auntie, I'm your mother.
Can't cross mama and come in here and get treated nice. Your case is dismissed and so are you.
You're what Big Fox, WYDC TV, Elmira Corning.
Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. And how can we help like that in our small businesses, not to sound cliche, but are the backbone of our community? Let's talk about thanks, as always, to you, the viewers, for sending in your texts and your voicemails. Now we go to a comment. This is from John in Elmira. Make sure to catch Frankly Speaking only on AM Big Fox News WYDC or visit our website at WYDCTV.com.
When you're online, don't forget to visit our Facebook page at Big Fox News. Catch up on news from the Twin Tiers and hear about local events. All on Facebook.com/Big Fox News.
As always, we thank Voss Security in Horseheads for bringing us our amazing view of Market Street. Contact Voss Security today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Let's go to the Student Senior Services Fund section of our program where we read viewer comments. Ken writes in, I have got to believe that many of the Democrats have looked at the past and are trying to place themselves in a position that the Democrat Party will select them as the 2028 presidential candidate. They know that they need the following. 1, they need a slightly better cognitive status than Biden. 2, they need to be more likable than Kamala and better on the stump to not fall into nonsensical word salads. 3, they need to be able to take and act on orders from the puppet masters. 4, they need to position themselves as a moderate that will pull the post-Trump economy back from the brink of disaster and unite the fractured country while winking and nodding at the far left's agenda. Well, the problem is, I think at first, that's why you see Cory Booker and AOC and all these other people, they realized to win the primary, they have to be far left. That's who's going to come out and vote for them, is the more radical Democrats. That's the voting bloc that gets out in full force if they have someone that they like. But then, yes, they'll switch, they'll pivot after the primary, and they'll be moderate. You will think really running in some instances as conservatives, hoping to dupe certain people. And I don't know how they'll be able to suggest that they're going to pull the post-Trump economy back from the brink of disaster. That's what they'll try to make it sound as if the economy's bad. But if you look at the numbers, after 4 years, it'll be interesting to see how they try to push that agenda. But I think you're right, Ken. I think you're right on all of them. Another comment from a different viewer. Good morning. Hey, good morning. It's so sad to see the Democrat ship sinking in a sea of socialism. No lifeboats or life vests. They are only throwing each other anchors. Yeah, that's the direction the party's going. That's why the stars are AOC, still Bernie Sanders, Jasmine Crockett, Mama Donnie in New York City. Now we have, breaking story yesterday, but coming from an anonymous source, but I thought you would find it interesting. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has privately discussed the idea of running for political office next year in Tennessee. That's according to two people that have spoken directly with him about it. If Hegseth were to follow through on that discussion, it would amount to a major leadership shakeup at the department that oversees the American military and millions of federal employees. The Defense Department bars civilian employees from running for political office, meaning Hegseth would have to resign to do so. In a statement, Sean Parnell, the Pentagon's chief spokesman, said Hegseth's focus remains solely on serving under President Trump. One of the people said their discussion with Hegseth happened within the past 3 weeks, and it was serious, not simply spitballing ideas. The other person, who was also characterized as serious, wouldn't say when they had spoken. Okay. Boy, there's a lot of hit pieces out on Trump daily, isn't there? If you go to Drudge Report, the FBI's leaders have no idea what they're doing. This is a piece from The Atlantic. You know who it is? As we mentioned in the 6 o'clock hour, the person who said that is someone that was booted, or actually quit when he saw the writing on the wall that he was getting booted from the FBI. So when you see these Doge cuts, you're going to have a lot of quote-unquote whistleblowers, right? Because you have a lot of disgruntled employees that lost their job because they weren't necessary, or they just weren't doing a good job. And those are the whistleblowers that places like The Atlantic love to run with. Your thoughts on this? A Senate Republican wants to see some of the money rolling in from Trump's tariffs go back to American families. Trump's tariffs so far raked in billions of dollars and have set the administration on a pace to achieve a once lofty goal of $300 billion in total revenue to the federal government from across the board duties. Senator Josh Hawley wants to see some of that money flow to Americans. Hawley introduced a bill that would provide families with up to $600 per adult and child, or for a family of 4, a total of $2,400. His bill comes as the Treasury Department announced that through July, the administration's tariffs have brought in about $28 billion. That's already $1 billion higher than all of June tariffs revenue. That brings the total revenue generated by duties for the year to about $150 billion. Your thoughts on this? I think Trump has said in the past we're thinking about a little rebate, but the big thing is we want to do is pay down the debt, and we're thinking about a rebate. I saw a lot of the comments in this article saying just pay down the debt, pay down the debt. But what's your thoughts? $600? Maybe Holly's thinking let's pull a Hochul and do it before next November. Maybe there's something there. A couple other things when we come back. Get your last minute comments in so I can read them before we wrap up today's discussion. And this is Frankly Speaking here on Big Fox.
When you're online, don't forget to visit our Facebook page at Big Fox News. Catch up on news from the Twin Tiers. Vote on the daily question and hear about local events. All on Facebook.com/Big Fox News.
Nearly 500 kilos of cocaine has been seized in a bust.
Thousands lined the pier at Seneca Harbor. Race weekend brought thousands to Watkins Glen International.
Hundreds and horseheads joined other cities around the country on Saturday for the No Kings protest.
It's a season of sharing.
Having a good time has always been my #1 goal. I tend to get crazy. At my age, I should not be jumping up and down like that. And if you don't know what I mean, ask your mama. The young ones, y'all like, we don't know what you talking about. But I promise you, in 30 years, you will.
It's the best time in daytime.
weekdays at 2 p.m. on Big Fox.
If you have one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio, getting ready to wrap up today's edition of Frankly Speaking. This section of the program, where we read viewer comments, is brought to you by Steuben Senior Services Fund. Contact them today at 607-664-2298. Steuben Senior Services Fund, empowering seniors to age at home. There's their logo. I don't know about this one, Rick. I'm going to read it, but I can't tell you how much I disagree with your first part here. But I'll read it because we try to. I shouldn't say we read everybody's, because sometimes there's just things I can't read on the air, as you can imagine. I'll read this because it is a different opinion, and that does not scare us here. But I think it overlooks Hamas. None of this would be happening if Hamas didn't do what they did on October 7th. But anyway, this is Rick's quote. The Israeli ambassador to the U.S. is an idiot. He's blaming Hamas for shooting at the people waiting in line for food. Yashil leader is his name. Taking no ownership for the situation in Gaza when Israel helped create the situation. Again, how do you... Boy, that's a tough one to read, Rick. I couldn't disagree more that Israel didn't... That's not... This would not have happened if Hamas did not do October 7th. But I'll continue. I know Israel's after Hamas, but the entirety of Gaza is destroyed along with the Palestinians' lives as a result of Israel's action. I guess you can blame Hamas and Israel. Israel has absolutely demolished everything in Gaza. They refuse to acknowledge that Palestinians in Gaza are starving and suffering. That's why civilized folks shouldn't support Israel's actions anymore. Why is it that the world didn't start to react to this crisis until yesterday? It's been going on for a couple of years, worsening as time went on. How can world leadership look at themselves in the mirror? It's a shame. I mean, here's the thing. Just like that article with in the New York Times having to now walk it back, there's so much propaganda, and it is so like that piece we had today that I thought was remarkably put. I can't remember the gentleman's name who wrote it. It's the blame Israel first crowd. It's their fault, and then you see the places like the New York Times using Hamas's numbers and Hamas's images. Anyway, I read that part, and it makes me. Ugh. But I like Rick, so I understand. I don't want to completely discredit what he has to say, but that one's a tough one. Old Donald sure does talk an awful lot about Epstein for someone that never did anything wrong. Well, the reason that Trump and Epstein ended their friendship is, well, it doesn't matter. Oh, it was a house purchase battle in Palm Beach, and maybe it's because they were stealing my young girls from the spa. Have a good day, Rick. You too, Rick. Well, I don't even know if we're going to have time to get to the whole Epstein thing. I do think that's a little disingenuous that he wants to talk about it a lot. I remember Mike Huckabee had a really great point when he was running for president, and it was that, every single reporter asks him about abortion or asks him about his religion and religion in his life. Every single one would ask him that, and then the next report would be all that Huckabee wants to talk about is religion and abortion. So I think that he's not volunteering to talk about that all the time. Comment from a different viewer: pay down the debt. That's in reference, instead of getting that rebate check from tariffs or whatever you want to call it, let's pay down the debt. Ken writes in, I think the Democrats have all but told their constituents that the primaries are now a thing of the past. Biden was pushed to the top by making the leader in the 2020 primary, Bernie, back out, and Kamala was installed in 2024 without a primary. Yeah, and if you go a step back, Hillary Clinton, the fix was in there. With superdelegates, Bernie would have never won that. Oh my goodness. We have, you touched on it earlier, Frank. One of the huge issues for Democrats is that they have walked away from their base. Another issue is nobody's looking for a party that stands against its country. Rick said, my point is that Israel is enough already, okay? And comment from a different viewer, shoot. I was just beginning to think we were going to get through your entire show without, we'll say the puppet, Rick, writing in. Okay. Now, that's it. Enough on that. We're out of time. Have a great day, everyone. We'll be back tomorrow morning starting at 6 for Frankly Speaking, only on WYDC TV, Big Fox. I look forward to it already.
What better way to start or end every day than relaxing in your very own Hesselson's hot tub? Massage therapy, relaxation, stress reliever, pain management, soothing muscles, or just spending time with a loved one. Hot water therapy really does make every day better. Hesselson's has been a part of this great community for over 70 years, still being locally owned and operated. So make the drive to Hesselson's and start making your path to a better life today. And after 70 years, it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
Steuben County Office for the Aging will be hosting a public hearing on Thursday, September 18th at First Presbyterian Church in Bath. This hearing is to review the 2026 Annual Implementation Plan for the Older Americans Act and the Steuben County Office for the Aging. This public hearing will take place at 9 a.m. on Thursday, September 18th in the Fellowship Hall of the First Presbyterian Church in Bath. Copies of the plan will be available at the Office for the Aging.